Greetings, nerds, geeks, and gamers of all kinds. Nate the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Today we're going to be talking about villains, their names, strongholds, and layers. And with me, I have a nerd.
I'm Kienata, and where do you want to start? What do you want to start with here?
With about a 15-minute nap.
Castles, evil death chambers. I have a few things that we could immediately use as jumping off points.
You know what? I kind of want to go into like names. Do you have a naming convention you just love more than anything else, or do you tend to always include a villain in different iterations?
I typically, for instance, if it's an orc or an ogre, I involve some form of active word about bodily harm with some word. So I'll do Brog the Bone Breaker, or Therog the Skull Crusher, or something like that. I like Majees and Mazees when I'm doing my orc names. Maybe a K just to mix it up. But that's about where I go typically for most of the orc, and it kind of dehumanizes them and makes you feel a little bit better about turning them into a pincushion.
Yeah.
So yeah,
they obviously crush skulls. I mean, they didn't get that nickname because they made it up.
Exactly.
So it's
exactly.
That's totally fine. It's totally fine.
One eye. But yeah, here and there's a million things. Hi everybody, how you doing tonight?
Now, I recently had. He wasn't okay. I don't want to get in trouble. Yes, there was this necromancer that I played, and he was crazy. And his name he was a noble necromancer from a defunct house, and his name was Reichard Kelvin Drolsey III. And
Reichard the Third.
Yes, the
He
third.
sounds kind of pompous.
Well, he isn't. He's pretty mad. He's pretty skitsy. He's got at least 5 or 6 problems, psychologically speaking, I would say.
Did you do the archetypal crazy Typhoid Mary kind of build where they paint one side of their face white and the other side black?
He was the guy that talked to he was invited to a vampiric dinner party, and he talks regularly to his undead familiar that he stitched together with love. And he also I also spent my only magic item slot that I got for the evening on a hat of disguise for my skeleton maid, so that she could dress nice and look like a regular person for the evening, as a present to her. And we had a blast. She just knew where to dance and when. I don't know how, but she's just good at it. So he was he wasn't sniveling in the coward sense. He was sniveling in the just general weak persona. He had a weak persona when it came to that kind of stuff. He was a fallen Azamar. So
oh goodness,
some bad stuff was going on with that guy.
Yeah, so he's had a bad life.
But he wasn't malignant. He wasn't malignant. He was that crazed type of person that thought he was eventually going to rule over death by transferring people that he knew. Well, his family died in a plague, and the whole household except him was it. It was just him. So his thoughts were, well, my mom taught me magic, so let me go and figure out how to get this to work and get them back. So
there was this other guy who wanted to bring back family members and rule over death. He had a thing about lightsabers and the dark side.
Well, I'm not
He's
saying,
a bad man.
I'm not saying it was a totally bad idea. Yeah, so what basically not to let me hear about your character. Just wanted to kind of set it up. He had a pompous sounding name, but he was anything but pompous.
All right.
He was very down to earth, in the ground, digging people up kind of guy.
And we have had many comments coming in about naming conventions, and one that stuck with me, I think that was Fernando Ruth. It was that they just don't like a lot of the science or the fantasy naming conventions. I guess it applies to science fiction as well, because people sometimes it just sounds like they put marbles in their mouth and said words until something sounded good, and then they're like, oh, that's the name. So, do you use any specific naming conventions? And there's tons of stuff out there people use. Sometimes I've seen people write out an entire alphabet. They'll pick letters from the alphabet that are always accentuated in nickname. Anything like that?
Well, I know for Kredgfer, which is a god, he's kind of like a nasty god of the hunt. His name was just figured out by rolling d20s. So, and just rearranging them, however. So, I mean, you could do that. That's kind of the true randomization. But I do enjoy the name convention for I follow the mindset for the orcs, where you've got that, bodily harm somewhere in the name, or some kind of scar or something
One
like
eye.
Yeah, one
People
eye.
love the one eye.
they've got maiming happening. They've got scarification happening.
Yeah.
There's some kind of either fiendish elements or something to them in there, or like of war, some kind of war thing.
Oh, we had a good comment from Twitch. Russet Man said, hey, well, not related to the topic for the stream, the Monster Mash stuff you guys have been doing inspired me to start making monsters on my own. I'm super happy to hear that, dude.
That's great to hear. I'm glad it is happening. Very soon, everyone will be making monsters.
Very soon. Yeah, we'll just do a community monster manual. We'll be like, okay, guys, everybody get together. We're going to have 4 monster mashes, and at the end of them, 100-page monster manual. Done.
Done. Might be 8-hour monster mashes, but it only takes 4 of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Fernando said his last Azamar's name was Miguel, and he had John Gleeman played as a monk, as a homage to Castlevania.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew Jackson, Tony Soprano. Well, hey, what was it? Nerdarchy Ryan, he had a paladin who was really ridiculous. It's in the Spelljammer game that we played every Thanksgiving. It was Ace Zenith, and he pretty much had I felt it was like a fan club to himself. As his thing, and he was basically he was modeled after Zach Brannigan from Futurama.
Oh, God.
And it was really good. I was like, I feel like I'm playing with a Futurama star here.
As far as naming conventions go, if the people you're playing with buy into it, if your gaming group is like, that was cool, and they never mention it, or they just think it's hilarious, or they're just along for the ride. I've had plenty of bad guys with the last name Zorg or Thanos, or like tons of stuff like that. So if the group likes it, you're doing it right.
Yeah, sometimes it can evoke. So on a more serious side,
on a
like
more
with
we
the
need
orcs,
to be serious.
yeah, on the serious side, like with your orc
Serious
naming
face.
convention, that gives a certain feeling. Like you said, you're as a DM, he's going to be a pincushion later, and you don't feel bad about it because you named him something pretty violent and terrible. So on that same thing, I think there's sometimes where you want a villain's name to say something about them, and then there's other times you want it to just be like they have a regular name, and they might also be called a nickname, or they have a cover.
Like Frank or Jeb. Hey, Jeb.
Well,
how you doing?
I have three powerhouses in the Merchant Circle area that are villains that I can't really talk about right now because some people are playing in that campaign. But after they find out who the villain is, right now they just know that there is people who they believe to be wizards that are the blue, the black, and the red. And all that's known about them on a commoner to like low-level adventurer like them basis, even the people that try and get information out of them, they're usually met with thieves guilds being in the way and contacts that are not meeting the actual person, so they have no idea how to get in contact with the real person, or if they are really in contact with the real person when they say they are.
I love layers of communication and making the players doubt the validity of who they're talking to.
Yeah, and they actually got attacked by someone who thought because they were going to meet with an agent of the blue that they were actually helpful agents of the blue, rather than like, oh, we've got this stuff. The blue guy, this blue stamp guy, says that he wants a certain amount of it, and we have some. Let's see what he wants for it. So they actually got attacked by a do-gooder who thought they were like collecting these terrible things for this guy. So they're like, I'm just going to have to stop him. I can't talk to him. I might not win. Because it was one against the entire party. So she had to, like, drop the sneak attack, you know, to try and get ahead of the game. But
James Leslie said most of my naming style comes from race. I definitely use that too. Mindset, absolutely. How do I want the players to perceive them? And the purpose of what I'm building, NPC, town, etc. Yeah. And incidentally, he's been doing a bunch of that lately. Yes, you have, sir. So yeah.
I found a lot of times what I have been doing is going into the Elvish translator, like English to Elvish, and either there's certain runes that I want to use, and then I find out what that is, and then just translate it, or there's a certain symbolic name I want to get across, so I translate it. So one of the characters that somebody's recently interacted in, it was an assassin, and her name was originally Morning Song, as in a song in the morning, like a bird song or something like that, and she's Elvish. So I, translated that over, and then her name is currently Mourning, as in to mourn someone, like funeral mourn song. So like it's mixed up in common. When you hear it, it sounds the same, but it means something very different when it's translated into Elvish, because those two words, separate out and don't sound the same. So they think one of them's her nickname and the other one's her real name, but they don't know which one. But so kind of that's a person that could be a villain that has some symbolic reference in their name, and I like adding that little bit of, when I have the chance, if it's just like here's some bandits, Edwin, Robert, Bobbert,
Neil.
Jack.
There's always a Neil in there.
There's always a Neil.
I ever run a game for you guys, and there's bandits. One of them's Neil, and there's probably a girl named Priscilla. They're in there.
Yeah.
There's Doug Sunseth actually had an interesting little resource here. The Writer's Digest publishes a character naming source book with the names divided up by culture and sex. I found it quite useful. That does sound quite useful. That's really interesting. I'll have to look that up.
Great.
Things to Google later.
There is also a fantasy villain name generator. I had it earlier up here and I had closed it. So if anybody feels like Googling that while you're listening and chatting, feel free.
Give people things to Google.
Yes. Do the thing. Or Bing, or I don't know, DuckDuckGo, or whatever you feel like doing.
Bing? Oh, no.
Hey, that's the default for Discord, and I haven't figured out how to change it. It's torturing me. Every time I open something from Discord, it goes to Bing, and I'm like, no.
Alex Saranti?
Neil
Alex
the Bandit,
Santeri.
the banker,
Yeah,
the cobbler.
Neil the Jackal. He's there. You will run into him and you'll be like, oh, he pulled out the Neil. He must be digging deep right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the name for me for that is Gerald. That is my go-to blacksmith name and innkeeper name. And like, oh man, I already used it once for an innkeeper. They're going to get confused. Okay, this town has to have the blacksmith name Gerald.
The other thing, sometimes it's fun. Like at one point I had the adventures. They're leaving this like mega city state. And as they're going through different towns, they keep running into NPCs that all have the same last name, but aren't related. And
really?
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that you would have actually seen things like that, where there's just these huge extended families and they have no idea that they're related to each other anymore. So,
because it's like 3 or 4 generations past and they haven't really moved out of the town. So
yeah, they lived in that town their whole life.
Everybody's somebody's 3rd, 4th cousin or whatever.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you only went a total of like 20 miles max ever from your place.
Chris S. said, my first foray into DMing, I'd get caught off guard and name NPCs after celebrities. There is nothing wrong with that. I had just finished writing a book that was supposed to be steampunk, and so all of my naming that was coming out in D&D was all like Albert Huron and people who had actually done things historically significant during the like 1800s through like 1904. So it's fine.
Thurismund, thank you for becoming a Nerdarchist.
Thank you very much, sir.
Chris S. said had a Captain Bruce Willis. I agree. That is pretty terrible, but Captain Bruce.
Is he constantly beat up and looks haggard?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So evil people.
Oh, well, so one more thing. So
yes,
you can kind of see how we're been talking, and there is those common names that you throwaway names that you're like, you've got a Neil. Would you ever name your main villain Neil? Unless you wanted to get a laugh from everybody. You may call me Tim.
Yeah, exactly. I think if I named the NPC, like they could all be level 1 characters. I could be like, this is an ultra powerful lich mind flayer with hundreds of Umber Hulks behind it, and starts the battle by casting time stop and dialogue, doing a monologue.
Uh-huh.
If I named him Neil, the players would assume he was killable. They would just instantly assume it's a Neil. We can do this.
I would assume, since when he time stopped in dialogue, it probably just came out as ah. So first
one
thing,
of those players.
I'm Neil. I think we're gonna kill you.
I think we're gonna drop him. I shoot him with my bow.
The lich just squealed and said he's Neil. Is that even common? Maybe he's trying to say he surrenders.
When you're such a prestigious elf that you have 4 apostrophes. I completely agree with that. The elven name Quinn Halachman Vinfalhag, just some crazy mess.
Villainous or something like that is the librarian in Gryffindor. And you don't know when he was replaced by a doppelganger. I said, "Is he dead? Do I ever have to say that man's name again?" I'm crossing my fingers. I like the character, but man, I just couldn't say his name, and it was embarrassing because I was the high elf in the group. So it's like, maybe I'll just have a short name, because we're so familial friendly. Maybe I don't know, but I was noble too, so it was kind of really a pain in the butt not to say his real name. And it was just a mess up that I kept doing over and over again. So just like the librarian, Ted. DM, hook a brother up. I'm saying the librarian. Everybody knows who the librarian is. Just assume I said his name.
Yes. Guy with name. Old Grumpy, the 19th. How's it going? 19 said, one of my villains recently was a sellsword of sorts that did not care what he was being paid for as long as he was paid. That definitely sounds like a sellsword. I went far past my player's boundaries, describing a gory scene that he caused. We actually discussed player boundaries and comfort level was that last stream?
Yeah, I think that was when we were talking villains. Yes.
Yeah. So just remember, if their comfort zone is right here, all you have to do is scooch a teeny bit past it and they get the point.
Yeah.
You're good. You're done. Put it down. No more. So.
And we have somebody talking about taking the race's name and altering it to be the person's name. Like Manu.
I wonder how many orcs have been named Crow.
At least one.
At least one
says so.
Okay, so places to put bad guys. Where does Strahd go? He goes in a castle surrounded by the mists. All right, we have a home for a vampire, but a more imaginative home for a vampire. What about a vampire that lives in a cave, or a vampire with an airship that tries to follow the darkness? You know, like there's a host of different things we could do. Oh, like our screen go crazy. Whoa.
Everything's fine. I fixed it.
Everything's fine. Everything's okay. Relax.
Yes, everything is fine. Yeah, so there's the few things that you'd have. What's the villain, like, is he transitioning from his stronghold to he has to go out into the world to accomplish something? Like, is he the villain that sits and waits? Is he the villain that is going to go after something? Like, do the players see him in the field, get slapped around or whatever, barely survive or run away? Do they see him off in the distance and he just blows up something? You know, like, how are they introduced to him, or are they introduced to him simply by his aftermath? Like, they're always one step behind and they don't know how he's traveling so fast, or how, you know, one way to, I guess, if they knew ahead of time where he was going, but they just couldn't get there before he enacted some kind of catastrophe over and over again. Because he had an airship, or because he could just teleport whenever he felt like it.
I do really like the idea of addressing that, though. You bring up a really good point. All villains don't just hang out in their lairs. If they did, they might not be very villainous because they'd never get anything done. So addressing, what do they do when they're out in the field? Does this dude ride a dragon around? Does she take the form of other people so she can get where she's going undetected and unsuspected? And I did have one more naming question. Sure. How do y'all name things like demons, fae, and dragons? That's from Zebulon Skitchell. Pretty sure I said that right. Nailed it.
Okay, when I name demons, when I name dragons, when I name really ancient beings, they have many names. Mm-hmm. And usually there is the symbolic name that the players, the mythos has called him or her. There is what they know themselves to be. Not even their true name. Their true name can be something else entirely, but what they themselves and what, if they were just a regular person, what somebody would call them. And then they're like also known as blip blip blip. So I had a dragon called Incantanerex Barahundium. And Incantanerex Barahundium,
bless you, sir,
had several names. Some of them were the World Cracker, like the World Render. World Render, I think was the name.
Of the 9 faces, just throw that on the end of a demon. Just whatever you want to call it, of the 9 faces. And your players will want to know what the 9 faces are. Don't tell them. Yeah. Just let them wonder.
Let them wonder. And that particular dragon had several names. He was in mythos. He was in legend. He's completely different than what people envision him in, because he was associated with world tragedies in which he didn't take part in. So he basically, as the biggest powerhouse in the area, he just got blamed for things like, oh, the earth split open. Must have been Incantanerex. And they called him, some of the people in the area called him Old Inca. And like things like that. So there's like all these different names that you come upon. And it's almost kind of like a puzzle. I see it as it's not an annoying puzzle that you have to solve before you go on. But it's one of those puzzles where you discover more about the person because you're learning more about what the world thinks of them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's false information, like Barahundium never cracked the earth open, but he's known as a world render. He made a citadel that was supposedly a cult to him fall into the ground, never to see the sun again. So he's done a lot of things, supposedly, that
quote unquote.
So it like talks him up as bigger than life, and I think a villain might actually have that, where they go about crafting those names and putting them out into the world, or doing things just to simply have, like, if they're like, oh, I'm going to take over this region and eventually I'm going to depose the king because I'm actually the grandson of the king that got killed, so I'm like a descendant, and I'm sorry, I deserve, like, lawfully I am supposed to be there, but he unlawfully rebelled, the current king. So he might go around making a name for himself that's he might do things simply to gain reputation. So he's going to gain names out of that.
Neil went really far in chat. Honor me and name an NPC Neil in your next game.
Neil before Neil. Ebert the Soul Flayer.
I guarantee you can make your players scared of the name Ebert if you put some energy into it.
Ebert. And we have so that's where I like to go with the names. They've got extra names on top of their true and real name. Mm-hmm. And by true, I mean their name that you could gain power over them by knowing, and real as in the name that they go by. Or that like a friend of them would know what their name was. And
Steve, this is stolen out of chat. Steve of Wonders. It could be like a cleric.
Instead of Neil before Neil, Steve before Steve.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right.
So, so we also had a demon called Narcitus. And he was called the Blood God, the Blood Drinker, like all these kind of blood things going on. Bloody tears were...
Blood of donation.
Blood of giving. Yeah, so he had a lot of kind of side names, but they were all very much associated with what he did and what he was about. And, excuse me. And Narcitus might not even be the name of power that we would use over him. It might just simply be the closest thing that we're going to get to getting to him. So,
yeah.
In Ted's
there's a really cool story about a bunch of demons that sold their services. And they sold their services. In order to sell their services, they basically created a book of true names. And that book of true names was given to someone who essentially lorded over them for a period of time. Then supposedly the pages were ripped out and spread everywhere and lost. But I don't know. That's a fun piece of material to know about, just to find a page of true demon names somewhere and be like, I'm going to read this out loud. Okay. Huge demon next to you. What you doing?
What you going to do?
Okay. So is Nate's evil cleric going to hang out in his undead grove, or is he going to venture out into the world in order to spread chaos and destruction?
Well, whenever he decides that he needs to go someplace really fast, he summons his unicorn. That sacrificed itself. That sacrificed itself to create a good artifact out of a bad one, which he has in his possession. So
my camera exploded.
Oh.
It's
I hope
okay.
It unexplodes or reassembles itself
It
spontaneously.
did. I forced it to unexplode. There we go. All better.
Right. So, yeah. So he would ride a unicorn, which would be blasphemy to people who think he is evil. So...
you have players, people in Twitch, players, everyone, you're all players, will GM. We have people in Twitch who said it's not evil.
Good. Not evil. I'm glad. So, Ozim, question. Do you let players decide to side with the BBE? So, big bad evil guy for people who didn't know, or big bad evil, because it's missing the G. So, with that person, it depends on whether or not everyone's cool with that being the way it goes. Because you might have a schism where some people side with them. And I would say, like, if one person sides with them, I would expect that if you all thought we were going to play a heroes game, but somebody sides with the bad guy, that heroes game for that player character is over. Do you know what I mean? So it really depends on what kind of game you're playing. I would never play a game, unless everyone knew this was going to happen, in which some people could side with the bad guys and still be off the table and play. Because it's so hard to not meta that stuff. It's so hard to not metagame that stuff and use out-of-game knowledge and all that.
If we're all playing Star Wars and Darth Vader is like, you guys can join me and we'll be bromios and take over the universe together. That is the part of the game where I tell the players, talk amongst yourselves, and I go get a cup of water or use a restroom or something while they discuss how they want that to play out. But at the end of it, I would be like, this comes with caveats. Yeah. Like we're going to have to say, if one of you stays evil or if one of you stays good, you turn into an NPC and I'll play your character well, but you're not going to be, we would want the group to stay cohesive.
Yeah, there's a cohesiveness to the group that you need.
Yeah.
We're getting a bit off topic though.
We've been off topic. It's their fault. You did this.
Let's hone it on back. Let's go back to the. So what we're saying is, for transportation, that kind of like lets you know, well, what was their goals? What were they thinking about doing? Why are they out and about? And what would they use to go around? And you don't always have to give them some super awesome tricked out ride. They don't need the airship. Maybe their goal is to find an airship. Or find a spelljamming helm or something, or
spelljammer,
a crashed illithid craft or something that they've heard about in legend that can actually take them away from this area or take them anywhere in the world really fast. if that was the case, I mean, even if a Illithicraft could only go as fast as a jet engine and could never go back into space, isn't it that like the most powerful transportation system ever?
500 miles an hour anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, I mean it's only beat by a Archmage casting teleport whenever he feels like it, but you know.
I find a lot of solutions as a player in games. I see a lot of teleportation, especially when it's time for the bad guy to go away. I see a ton of a portal opens behind him, and I'm always like, you are robbing me right now. Why are you doing this
Why
to
are
me?
you stealing my enjoyment?
Pull out a portal gun next time and open it, like make it interesting, but don't just, I open a portal to the nether realms and step through. Ta-ta! Like, help me out. So,
well, it is one of the best and safest ways to travel. Safer than transporters.
I would like a broomstick every once in a while.
Okay.
How
about a flaming chariot?
You know what? I would love a flaming chariot. If they were like,
cool. Or like a giant massive bats comes and like transforms into a flapping
That's
swarm.
kind of a vampire trick though. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, I mean, what if you're in a cave and the guy cast the flaming chariot thing, but it would be totally cooler if all the natural fauna in the area came to his aid and flew him out of the...
Everybody bites a piece of fabric.
And it looks way cooler than a flaming chariot in a cave, I think.
It would look cool. I've had people dissolve in the mists.
And if it was the first or second time they met this bad guy, they might think he's a vampire and do all kinds of preparatory work towards that end. And then like you find him in his bed. So for some reason he's not in his coffin. Maybe he's hugging a pile of dirt or something. Maybe his pillow's made of his grave dirt or something. And you stab him in the heart with a stake. He dies. What?
He looks at you super confused, like that's messed up, dude, and dies.
Sorry.
Give me a weird night, folks. Now. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Transportation. So so we can both agree that it doesn't have to be super awesome all the time. It just has to be something different beside a teleport scroll or I step through a gate and you can't follow me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking broomsticks, we're talking flaming chariots, some kind of spell, some kind of item. Hey, I mean, one of those wondrous figurines, a fiendish elephant appears out of nowhere and he hops on the back of it. And are you gonna get in front of a fiendish elephant? I would not. If I'm low level.
A fiendish elephant?
Yeah, let's make it fiendish.
Yeah, throw it on the end there. That sounds good. It like evil demonic tusks and maybe some fangs in its mouth and stuff.
Yeah, flaming tusks.
I hide.
With
I run
big
away.
Ears. And
I shoot it with an arrow as I scream and run away.
And then the elephant flies away. Yeah, so the idea is usually if you introduce a villain early on, you don't want to kill the players and you don't want them to kill the villain. So we're just saying there's always going to be a reason for you to have an exit strategy for your villain. Because otherwise they probably should have been caught by now. Especially if you're like first, second, third level and you're running into this guy, even if it's on accident.
This actually speaks to where we're headed right now. Invader Zim, says, what are some good reasons you can give the players to allow the bad guy to leave? Example, a player is nearly dead dying. If a player is nearly dead dying, I'd have, in order to cover the escape and make it easier for me as the GM, I might have the bad guy do some last ditch, I'm going to finish that guy off thing, and then roll some dice, but never actually look at them and be like, oh my gosh, you're at 1 hit point. That's amazing. What are the odds? And the bad guy gets away. And the story is delivered right and the story is suspenseful, that's going to be a huge moment for them. So
you could also have it where if you knock down half the party, and they're not stabilized yet, speaking specifically of 5e, if they chase after the bad guy, they might lose some people.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
What's to say, since he just stomped half your party, that he's not just going to stomp you when you're on your own after him?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of that, especially if the villain has something that can't be damaged, if it's something that they might just not want necessarily to have some conflict. I mean, imagine it's a thief stealing a book from the library. You happen to be in the library late at night, and you see this thief stealing a book. Well, I say it's a thief, but it's actually like a wizard coming in to steal something because he's going to go do some bad stuff. But at the point, he's not threatening. He's just stealing something from a library. So he probably thought, who the heck's going to be in here except some pushover sages that I can like throw a book at and they're going to be bleeding to death. So I'm fine. I'm just going to go in, grab what I want, and leave. So he's shocked to see somebody try and stop him, first off. And that's going to be a whole kind of situation where he doesn't want to be in the situation. He wants to leave and get out of here. Mm-hmm. Rather than, I think, sometimes players get into the mindset, it's like, we must defeat this encounter, and then we move on. Where real people don't want to have the chance of, I mean, what if you crit him and he gets knocked down? Well, his little story's over now because you've captured him and knocked him down. So it's like, he doesn't want to get into a conflict, even if he thinks he can win. He wants to get out of there, because that's the 100% certainty that this will succeed, is by me just running away right now and leaving.
We actually had this could go straight to Monster Mash, to be totally honest. Thurismund in Twitch chat said a helephant. Just in case, just keep that one off to the side.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That is going to be a figurine of Wondrous Power in my game somewhere.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And then it has charges, and if the players see the bad guy use it, they'll have some concept of that won't be back for another 24 hours. I know that's a once a day. Even though that's super metagaming, they're going to do that.
That's when I give it to him 2 or 3 times a day.
Like,
eat that, metagaming.
The lead metagamer at the table is like, wait, but that's only... Never mind.
So, Mr. L, I read this and I was like, wow, that sounds really awesome. Give him a flying cathedral. And then I read the rest of evil. And it made it way more funny than it was supposed to be to me. But some kind of like flying castle, like that's another cool concept. Again, you wonder, you got to say like, well, how did this person get this? So you kind of want to, it can be, what is it? I guess the thing is, when you're looking at a stronghold concept or a layer for a villain, sometimes tropey, like being really tropey, can be great. But if you do it endlessly, it gets like, it feels like you're the players and you are playing every video game and cheap book that's ever, cheap comic that's ever been out. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain point where it kind of like churns over too much. And that's the thing. That's what you're saying, like with the portal exit, like a way of escape. So that's what I'm going to put. There's got to be a way of getting away.
Right. We should actually start to write some of this down. We'll have nothing to work with later. You'll have to rewatch the whole video to figure out what to use.
And I'll feel like we just went off topic all the time.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. If you are having fun, then we can just continue to have fun. But we should try and be constructive. So one of the things that I did for a recurring villain that my players had to deal with is my players went to this village, and it's this super distant, out of the way tribal village. And they have these like wards and stuff around the village, and they're trying to keep someone from getting in. So this person they're trying to keep from getting in is this super evil thing, and they never really run into him. They just see signs of bad things he's done. But later on, they run into the guy and they kill him. And then further down the road, they run into a villager that they met from that village, and it's that bad guy. So basically, every time the bad guy dies, his soul goes into just a random villager in the village, and then he would come back out of the village. So they can't permanently kill the bad guy unless they wipe the village out. But the village is good people.
Oh, man.
Yeah. They wiped the village out. If anyone's wondering how that story ended, that's the kind of players I have.
That's like a 50-50 chance. Are they going to go full on? Well, we're just going to have to keep fighting him over and over and over again.
They were sick of it the second time he showed up. They were like, I think I know what's going on here.
And I have a hunch. Let's kill all these innocent people.
Yes. I think it was literally like I was arguing with a cleric. I was like, if you flame strike the town, that's the last thing your deity lets you do. Like, you flame strike the town and then you wake up the next day with no more of anything. Someone else is going to show up to offer you, hey, I'm a deity. I give spells. So
this other god abandoned you. Come with me.
What program are you using to create that? This is called Homebrewery.
Yes, homebrewery.naturalcrit.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we're using that for right now. We may use another program in the future, but I'm checking things out right now. I'm checking out our options.
Exactly. We have some other things we have an eye on.
Yes.
So, but yeah, this is a really good program. It basically makes everything look like a player's handbook, which is wonderful. You can't publish it because some of these resources literally came from the player's handbook.
Well, like the font or like a style. Yeah.
But you can have gorgeous handouts for your players or PDFs for them to download. You can actually download as a PDF right off the website, so it's very cool.
Voltaire Rewind. A vampire cannot survive if we kill all their food. Is that like when they blotted out the sun in the Matrix?
Yeah.
The whole entire Earth needs this, but the robots want it more. Let's get rid of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty dastardly to go around killing off people because the vampire might not be able to survive if you kill them off.
What about someone who doesn't necessarily have a mount? And I'm going to give you someone who isn't a bad guy as an example.
Okay.
And maybe we can create an interpretation from that. Gandalf is chilling out on top of a tower. He's all beat up, grabs himself a moth, whispers to it. Moth checks out. A little while later, Great Eagle shows up and he hops on its back and flies away. What about a bad guy who doesn't necessarily have an immediate way out, but has some form, like if there had been a guard standing there watching Gandalf, he'd been like, that's weird, he's talking to a moth. And then a while later, an eagle would show up and he'd be like, wait a minute, I think that moth went and got that eagle. You know what I mean? So maybe the players would be able to put two and two together that this is how the bad guy keeps getting away. We can stop it. We just have to kill all the moths.
And then a squirrel, and then the squirrel shows up. And they're like, all right, squirrels, you're next.
So, but someone who's able to use an obvious mechanic to escape, like my bad guy, every time he's about to die, pulls off a ring and throws it on the ground, and the ring is destroyed and it creates a portal and he teleports away. And the next time the players see me, I've only got 2 rings left.
So they've got a few.
Right. Or they know the mechanic I'm using. They might be like, I throw a portable hole down there and the ring goes in the portable hole. You know what I mean? Like they might try and deal with it once they have a mechanic they can work with.
Yeah, there's basically a way of defeating the way they're leaving.
Right.
Like kill all the moths in existence, Factoid says. And then Bruce Komodo, and then the end boss becomes Mothra. You have killed all my people.
So then this is just methods of escape. Did we write down teleportation? Because I feel like that should be first.
Oh, yes.
Lots of things that get used all the time are things like stalls. Dominions count as a method of escape?
Yes. Body blocking.
Body block.
Now, that can be... Okay, so this can be thematically in a town square.
Bro, you're boss blocking me, man.
And that could just be people that don't know anything better. You see him across the way. You're like, oh, that guy. And then he looks back and he goes, oh, those people are chasing me. And he's just throwing people down, overturning apple carts, cabbage carts, whatever's in his way.
Cabbage carts.
Lighting stuff on fire.
My cabbage cart.
My cabbages. All this kind of stuff to basically make obstacles. Body blocking or obstacles?
Stargate. In Stargate, the Escape from LA guy, whatever his name is, Kurt Russell, has a weapon and is ready to shoot the alien, and the children gather around the big bad guy. And so he can't shoot because he doesn't want to hit the kids. Mechanics like that are mildly messed up, but effective.
So innocence?
Innocence, exactly. Innocent, or you could even write down ignorant, because you'd have people that don't know any better. Everybody likes this guy.
Yeah, like, hey, you're beating up the handsome knight that gives food to the poor. Exactly.
He married my daughter. He's a good man and a great farmer. You should taste his cabbages. So, you know, so you could have people who are just blissfully ignorant, have no idea how evil this guy is, and they're willing to get in the way to protect him. Chris S says fog cloud invisibility combo is sick. Uh-oh. Nightbot went Mortal Kombat on someone. Sorry about that. Nightbot has default settings right now. The AI has not been awakened yet.
Should never be. Simulacrum, Fraginator. That's a great suggestion. Oh, hey, Fraginator.
Clone and contingency spell. You could essentially throw them into like the Doom bot, where like every time, it was the worst. If you read comic books back then, they'd kill a Doom bot and they'd think they had just finished Doctor Doom once and for all. Oh man, there were so many Doom bots.
And there was just, circuitry and sparks. And they're like, no.
Exactly. Finally, we've defeated Doctor Doom. Is that a Doom bot? I'm out. Nope. I'm going to get a burger. I'm tired of this. I'm done.
I just opened up the champagne. Dang it.
A trap door. That's another good one. I love, Russet Man, moral dilemmas. I love giving players moral dilemmas. Difficult choices to make, things that are going to make their lives really hard. I had a bunch of evil orcs had waged war on this region of human and dwarven territory, and the humans and dwarves pushed them back, but then they kept pushing them back, and finally it was these like really gruesome, murderous parties that were chasing the last vestiges of orc society from this part of the world. And so they'd be like, a dwarf like heartlessly hacking the hands off of an orc male, and it's just an orc male, an orc female, an orc baby, and they just want to live. So
they're just running for their lives.
Right, they're just running for their lives. And so presenting that moral quandary, who do you side with? Who's on the side of right here, and who should you protect? Love stuff like that.
So Andrew Jackson BR, a villain who has a royal pardon is very dangerous. You catch him and a day later he's released. So I'm going to say way of escaping, money.
Money or clout.
Yeah, clout.
Diplomatic immunity, if you will.
Yeah.
Batman and Robin comic book. Robin right before he turned into Nightwing. Oh man, it's been so long since I followed that.
So I'm going to say friends in high places.
Friends in high places. Yeah. But yeah, Robin hucked a guy to his death, and Batman couldn't stop him. Wasn't quick enough to get there in time. And Robin claimed he slipped and fell. It was a messed up comic book. World shattered. Robin's a murderer. I can't go on. Yeah, it was messed up.
Is that when he becomes Nightwing?
It was. I don't know if he immediately became Nightwing or if it was a few issues later. Or
After he gets caught.
He never got caught.
No?
Well, the guy did horrible things. He basically assaulted Robin's girlfriend.
Oh, all right.
And had diplomatic immunity, so he was being forced to leave the country. And Robin was like, that's not a good enough punishment. Yeah. Things went south. They got dark quickly.
Seems to be.
Anyway.
Possession demon jump from peasant to peasant. That's a rough situation.
Exactly. Possession demon. Sometimes it's good to put a creature or NPC in the player's way that you feel, and this is really dangerous, it's just too powerful. Its way of escape is that it can literally turn and walk away. It's just too powerful for the players. It shows up and thinks it's entertaining to mess with them and just decides, it's just too powerful for the players to take on. The danger is that your players will try and take it on. Oh, here we go. Andrew has some. That Robin was Jason Todd. It was Jason Todd. Nightwing is Dick Grayson, the first Robin. Oh, is that what it was? Okay. Like I said, it's been a really long time since I read any of that. Thank you, sir. Factoids are good.
James Leslie says Strahd does that often. I bet. He can do that whenever he wants.
Strahd has options.
And Mike Weber, immortality is their basically way of escape because they just are not killable. They just come back after a while.
Absolutely. Did we record immortality? I think that's pretty good. There's tons of versions of immortality, though. What are we talking about here?
Let's just say in general.
In general,
they can either come back, even if they're disintegrated, they'll come back. You know, maybe they just get stabbed, they go to 0 hit points.
What if you cut their head off and take all their power?
Well, maybe, like a la Highlander, there's a way for them to stay dead.
All right.
So let's just say blanket immortality. So those are ways of escaping or ways of dealing with the party attacking you. So that the way that this can go is now that we have, well, what's their types of escape? You can say, well, now we can say, well, with that in mind, for example, if they have a flying broom, their stronghold or lair might be a tower that doesn't have a lot of stairs.
It just doesn't have a lot of stairs. It has some.
It has some.
Just not a ton.
For, the
just enough.
The workers and stuff. But anybody that wants to get to where he is has to have some flight. Or excellent climbing skills. Or, in Ted's games, we fought a beholder.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a hive of tubes. And sometimes those tubes were vertical.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like we had to have flying mounts because otherwise we could have been in there for months trying to spelunk through this layer.
One more really good way of escape is divine favor. I think that's super legit. That was elf bait.
Good point, especially if you're playing up the, their chosen evil of God or some kind of cleric. Right.
The voice of chaos or
that's
bad things or
that's going to give you a few insurance policy getaway, escapism stuff.
Perfect.
So like I was saying, if you had a flaming chariot, maybe you could have a themed stronghold or layer that's going to include those aspects or include, well, if it's a flaming chariot that can fly, then like I said, there's that kind of
can't fly, Nate.
Almost all this stuff can fly, teleports, all that kind of stuff. Now, as a villain, if I knew that I would die and be basically reincarnated or possess one of the other villagers, well, I'd send those villagers packing every which way.
Oh yeah,
people wouldn't be able to find those immediately upon me knowing that was my failsafe. I'd ship one to the moon if I could.
This is a bag of holding. Here's some water and food. I'll open it up every 24 hours for a little bit of air. Enjoy.
Yes, enjoy.
You're the backup plan.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? I think Odaluk Tensor put one of the 8 put a clone on the moon. That's how he lived through the terrible betrayal stuff going on. So hey, clone on the moon.
On the moon.
It's an important thing to have. So when you're
pocket dimensions.
So when you're a villain that's got this get out of death free just by possessing another villager, it's like, all right, you want to incentivize those villagers to not be next to each other and be hard to find.
Chris S. brings up a really, really excellent concept. Chris S. says, or maybe the villain wants to die and become a Death Knight. And it doesn't just have to be Death Knight. We don't have to stop there. We could say maybe the villain wants to die and be sneezing. Excuse me, more powerful.
If you strike me down, I'll come. How you could ever imagine.
Obi-Wan wasn't evil, depending on who you ask. No, the concept of the villain wants to be taken out by the players so that they can end up more powerful in the end.
Kyle Ellis brings up Voldemort Horcrux plan. That was the Horcrux. That was not full Lich, but it was close to it.
Yes.
So yeah, if they want to get, there's situations in which them not dying on their own but being killed is part of some kind of ritual, perhaps. Like maybe they have to die a violent death for a particular type of, you can make up whatever story you want. But I mean, it would definitely be a new twist for the idea of, fighting the bad. You're like, well, we found out your plan. We actually don't want to kill you. So we're just going to try and take you capture.
Yeah, how do you Iron Bands of Bolaro and
it's tough to capture somebody when they want to fight you hard enough that you have to kill them to live. Yeah.
Especially if it's something impossible like a dragon.
That's kind of hard to fight and have
non-lethal damage on it.
Yeah, non-lethal damage to
I hit the dragon with the side of my sword, not the edge.
Yeah.
Hey, dude. TPK night, I guess. Let's see how this goes.
Well, if y'all want to die, you can do that.
Okay. So continue, please. We had ways of escape.
Ways of escape. Why are they out in the world? We said many different things. They're either looking for something, they're looking to get killed by somebody. But with them being out in the world, I think most of them are going to have just general normal transportation. Do you know what I mean? So it's really important if you have a whole bunch of rangers or people that can track in the party. You don't want to necessarily put the villain too close into contact too frequently, because you're gonna come into that situation where they get some lucky hits in or they capture him, and you're like, well, I didn't want him to be captured, so I don't want to cheese some kind of escape. So you're kind of stuck with this new weird. If you had this like really awesome sparkly idea for a campaign arc, and now you're like three episodes in and it's supposed to go to 9, and like, well, you captured him. So all that cool stuff I had planned's gone.
That is when, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. Tell your players you need next week off. Get some extra writing time in and figure out how this is going to play out. And if you take an extra week off, they'll expect him to escape, guaranteed, or her to escape. And if they don't escape and you start new plot line, that could be just as exciting as if they get away. One of the things I really like to do with villains, players make up level 1 characters. I make up a level 5 villain, and that's where it goes. The level 5 villain grows at the same time as the players, and methods of escape, random magic items, all kinds of things end up coming into it. But sometimes I'll have the villain trying to get to the same objective the players are, just because where there be loot, there be power.
And they may come upon the situation with this villain and say, all right, we need to deal with whoever's doing these acts of atrocious acts. Let's go to this place that's supposed to have cool stuff. And then that's where you can kind of like all meet up. And they're trying to get the exact same things for their own purposes. So that's a good point. One of the things I wanted to say is like mapping out the story, not just having the story occur without reacting to what the players do.
Yes.
Because I got to tell you, you write a 9-part story, assuming what the players are going to do, and you either have to heavy hand them and kind of keep scooting them back on towards the
railroad,
the line, your arc. You're going to have to keep like correcting them onto that arc, or you're going to have like to really reinvent what that arc looks like in the end. Or the idea is, like you're saying, having that 5th level villain with that 1st level party. That 5th level villain's off doing something, either through proxy minions or whatever you've decided to have that villain have access to, and I'll show you 20% of my full power. John Gleeman.
Last time on Dragon Ball Z.
That's it, I'm taking off my weighted clothing. You guys have made me angry.
Goku was still powering up.
So, what was I even saying? I got distracted by chat.
I'm sorry.
Oh, so
I have more distractions.
So you've got that fifth level villain gaining levels and gaining prestige and other things, and you can have what that villain's doing be rumors to the players. So let's say they try and cut him off. They're like, oh, there's this, like, banditry and stuff going on. This merchant caravan was taking over. Well, the villain's doing something particular. He's already stolen something and moving on to the next task. So the players are like one step behind in a sense. So, you know, giving them a chance to actually be able to catch up or circumvent what they can, like, if they can guess what's going on.
Yes.
Like, give that to them. Give them clues, give them ways to do that, because that kind of, it's more of a dance that way rather than, here's this novel I wrote, let's all walk through it together.
And I'll be super honest. Most of the time, players, if they find out you have a novel back behind that GM screen, they're going to go for blood. They will just stop dead in their tracks and be like, cool, we go the other way. What you got?
Yeah. We're going to walk off here. I'm fine with the world burning over there. That continent being conquered by that bad guy, okay.
Don't care. It doesn't affect us. We're off.
We couldn't have fought him until level 20 anyway, so what's the point?
Exactly. Russet Man said, oh no, it ate his comment. No. Okay. The comment was, I read it. It's in my brain here somewhere. He said the bad guy's developing a huge army of undead, and the army of undead wasn't bothering anyone until you captured the bad guy.
Oh.
Because
he had some control over it.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's just rampaging, infectious zombies. I don't know about you, but in my D&D campaign, zombies that bite you turn you into a zombie, because that's fun.
I say ghouls can do that, but not zombies. So, because
everyone wants a zombie to bite.
Are just the fast zombies. They're like the 28 Days Later zombies, not Night of the Living Dead zombies. So, that's my take on that.
This is my take.
Now, zombies in my book, yeah, you can turn people into zombies, but zombies in D&D, no. I'd rather bump it up.
Come on, though.
Now, if you wanted to do a setting where this guy has done something and he has made zombies and they are able to transform other people into zombies through a disease mechanic, sure, great.
Ooh.
But don't let people who animate dead have infectious zombies.
Well, I think you'd have to add some level of control into it, but for my personal stuff, I always played heroic campaigns, so there wasn't a lot of animate dead going on with the players.
Fight fire with fire.
It's necromancy, and that's evil.
Zombies with zombies.
No, it's not good.
Zombie dome. 2 zombies enter. 1 zombie leaves, and then you cut its head off.
Who run Bata down? Okay, all right. So we managed to knock out ways of escape.
Yes, thankfully.
What about? I know we're getting nothing done tonight. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. Well, we accomplished nothing. So let's dive directly into places bad people live.
Okay. Yes.
How about that? We got ways of escape, which is like modes of transport. It's, Skeletor's purple lion. It's all kinds of stuff. But cool places to live. I have a very nice villa on the beach, right along the coast. I go there to relax, drink some wine. Sometimes I paint when I'm reflecting on the day. No.
And then I teleport back into the carnage.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Strongholds and Layers. Like I said, you can have ruins are great places. Because, all right, so ruins are kind of tropey, but they actually really make a lot of sense because most time ruins haven't been messed with for a reason. Whether that's scary stories, no one wants to be around it, something It's like there's just wild beasts in the area, so people disappear around the ruins, and then people blame the ruins instead. So whatever the case is, no one's going back and turned that into a farm or anything for some one reason or another, and it's just into disrepair, and no one pays attention to it. So it's a perfect place to hang out when you don't want anyone to bother you.
Well, and they're always old ruins, like an old knockdown castle or a old lost temple or something like that. There's also usually people around, like the big bad guy probably isn't thinking of a group of heroes. He's thinking of the villagers and Farmer Bob and his henchman Neil, and he knows none of these people are going to come anywhere near the old ruins because there are stories of fairies or werewolves or whatever. I mean, all he has to do is kill one person and hang the entrails up somewhere, and that's it.
Make a bold statement with lots of color.
Yeah, exactly. Make a bold statement with lots of color. Thousands of square footage for evil schemes.
I don't know why I'm thinking of the guy from The Tick just now. The Terror or whatever his name was.
Oh, yeah.
He just... All right. Sorry. Yeah, so ruins, towers, defunct castles. James Leslie says the vampire actually lives in a desecrated temple to the god of the undead, but under the falsity of the Church of Healing. So it's a desecrated temple. Mm-hmm. Should be like a church of light, happiness, and healing, but it's really like a cover for the god of death.
Right.
It's a front.
Hide in plain sight.
Yeah, and there could easily be cult people there. The Church of the Light people could actually be cultists in disguise.
You could even, with zealous belief, with overzealous belief, you could have people who really are there for the church, but the top dogs are manipulating them and using them to commit really nefarious acts. So definitely. A volcano, everyone wants to live in a volcano. A volcano. Yeah. Sharks with lasers on their heads. We're calling it Preparation H. Okay, I think a volcano is good, but a volcano
I'm
also...
putting down volcano.
Yeah, a fire giant, red dragon that's feeling saucy, although I'd expect them to want to live somewhere where they're not worried about constant eruptions.
Well, isn't it the layer effects in 5e for things like dragons? Doesn't that actually transform the area kind of into like magma and volcanic activity, thermal vents, all that kind of stuff when it's a red dragon? It gets pretty nasty around there. It gets like Mount Doom-ish looking.
Oh yeah. But if you're the GM, you can be like, this is how it's working. The volcano doesn't erupt, it just gently oozes out lava all the time.
Yeah. And that's how they forge all the weapons in the Rings of Power.
Exactly. Castle Grayskull. Can we just put Castle Grayskull down? It doesn't have to stay in the final document. I'm guessing that's someone's intellectual property, but we can have it here for now.
No, I made it 3 words. Totally legit.
That is not legit. Don't do that.
How about this? A. Voltaire Wine says, how about the villain just lives down the street above the market? His name is Tim, and he looks like a regular guy. Yeah. You could also have that, just homegrown villainy, where he either snaps one day, or he's just been slowly plotting things, like some kind of serial killer guy.
You can have the beginnings of an evil person. They found some normal guy found the hand of Vecna, didn't want to get rid of it, didn't know what to do with it, put it in his farmhouse, and now every once in a while he goes out and looks at it, and just being near it could be having an effect on him. He could be literally slowly turning into the big bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's a hand of Vecna, so that's awesome.
I had a few short story bits, well, like really short stories, for my vampire kin. I took Monk and monsterfied it and made it a vampire kin. And basically, instead of key points, whatever, you had blood points. And you could replace those by biting people and drinking blood. And you also had, you get supernatural jumping and all that kind of stuff. And
You white wolfed him.
You can grapple and bite people and stuff. So basically, gave him bite attack in there. And one of the stories was that this guy was a farmer. One night, he noticed a fire out by his favorite fruit tree, and when he finally got there, it was just ash in the shape of a person and like a burned piece of stick, and no one was around. And then that harvest that came up, his favorite fruit tree only had like one not that great fruit. He was like, man, well,
how peculiar.
This is my favorite tree. Maybe I'll just eat it, save the seeds, and I mean, it's not worth selling. It doesn't even look good. So I'll just eat it because I love the taste of this stuff. So he eats it, and then the next day he wakes up with a terrible thirst, and he's never been that thirsty in his whole life, and he's just like drinking and doesn't know what's wrong. So he basically is going down the way, and the way I did it was, you weren't a monk, you were this person transforming into some kind of vampiric being. So all the powers of the monk, the ability to strike people with nothing in your hands, the ability to grapple and just like slam people over, to jump long distances, all that kind of stuff.
In a single bound. That
was all just there because they're a vampire. That's why they can do that stuff. Not because they were training in some monastery someplace. So that's an easy way to just reskin a character class and be like, you're villain monster, and he started out as a farmer. And that's it.
Okay, we have tons of ideas in chat. Our gargantuan creature is a stronghold. Elfbait apparently has a bad guy who's a baker. He's going to be the only bakery in all of Waterdeep. A flying city. You gotta have a flying city. If you want to be a real villain, flying city. A living castle that's just our gargantuan gelatinous cube. Gnarly. The sewers. I know, Russet Man, you said deep beneath the sewers in a long forgotten crypt or sepulcher, but the sewers. That's always good. The good old basement o' evil. A villain who hides in a traveling circus. The Carnival of Terrors thing is fairly common.
Well, maybe as like a B movie, but not as
It's actually a big theme in Warhammer Fantasy.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Okay.
Yeah. And didn't they just do it in something? Tome of Annihilation or something had the crazy carnival in it? Help me, chat. I don't remember. Oh, good Lord. Okay, all right. Did you see Guardians of the Galaxy?
Twist of Fate, thanks for becoming a Nerdarchist.
Guardians
of the Galaxy, I did not.
Okay, in Guardians of the Galaxy, they have Celestials, right? And so the Celestials are these super giant dudes. Basically, they died, and one of the towns that they go to, they're mining in this town. And in the town they're mining out this huge dead Celestial's head. So what if the bad guy's base, this is straight out of chat, was a dead god?
I like it.
Living in a body part. I think that is an amazing idea. I want to live in a giant dead god's head.
I forget if in the astral, I think the Githzarel or Githyanki, somebody lives on the astral bodies of dead gods. I don't know who. But that's a thing, I think, somewhere. If only in my mind that's a thing. But yes, I agree. That's an awesome idea.
John Gleeman, that is way out there. He said a stronghold in the dreams of a madman. I don't know how you'd get there, but I don't want to be in that dream sequence. Oh, here we go. Voltaire said, the head is called Nowhere, and it's a space station.
Ah.
Yeah, they're like mining out the remains, like the bone bits from the inside of the Celestial. Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Oh, James Leslie, good point. The Darnun's instant fortress, you can just pack up and go whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how does he keep getting all these troops right in our faces all the time, and then he's gone. Well,
Fernando,
he shrinks it down, hops on his flying broom, and leaves.
Fernando does bring up a good point. There are many layers of hell and or abyss and or evil planes where you could easily have a base. And many times genies are considered evil for a variety of reasons. Some literally are evil, and they typically live on elemental planes.
I like the deep sea trench. Kyle Ellis, thank you for mentioning Howl's Moving Castle. I was wondering if that was going to get mentioned.
Oh God, yeah, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That's a great one.
I was keeping quiet about it. I like the underwater fortress.
Mm-hmm. I do like
deep sea trench.
Oh yeah, where you just couldn't possibly have any living creature get to it. Well, human get to it.
Raven Thalassine, that's a very specific type of wood. A house made of sapient pear wood. Is there some symbolism about that?
Oh, here we go. Ramon Dozle said, right beside the king, best hiding place ever.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the hiding
the vizier.
Yeah, vizier, the king's vizier.
2 steps to the right of the king.
And apparently we need to come up with a blanket term, like opulent, benign surrounding, something like that, where it's like they live in an area that is known to everyone to be an okay place. Like the villain is this woman who's one of the princess's handmaidens, and she has a nice house in a nice part of town, or you know what I mean?
Okay, let's say that's wolf in sheep's clothing.
Okay, that sounds good.
I think that's understood.
Okay.
All types. All types of deception. There we go. Wolf in sheep's clothing.
All the types of deception.
Yeah, so you're finding them in a place they just seem like there's discord in between what you're seeing as the person, like once you know that they're villainous, and their surroundings. You're like, what the heck's
and they
going
could be protected by literally the romantic white knight, who's just a completely good being, you know.
A magic mech.
What?
Ramon
Magic
Dozle.
mechs?
Thank you.
No magical mechs. What are you talking about?
Yeah, someone said it. I put it down.
Oh yeah, hiding. We have a few of these: a mirror, a magical painting, hiding in a magic item.
Yeah, let's say distorted spaces and demiplanes.
The TARDIS
and pocket dimension.
Yes.
There we go. I think that kind of gets all those.
Covers all our bases. There's just so many things, so many places you can have them hide away.
Regular generic ship, like one that floats on water.
Not air, not aether, just water.
Yeah.
There are people that have
space, none of those places.
Yes. It has sails, a crew. Oh, did we write down something like a business or something like that? Because there's often cases where it's like you've got to go talk to this guy.
They find establishment.
Yeah, right. Like he runs an inn or something. Hey, what are you doing in here again? Come on, sit in the back with me here. We got to talk business. You know that guy?
Yeah, inn, shop, guild.
Yeah. And you know, evil guilds, those are common. Those would be one of those hide and plain sight things. How does Kyle Ellis, I'll need a greater description of that.
Okay. Just pause. We have a yacht club for nobles in one of the areas, not Griffin Gaff, but around the area. It's a yacht club for the wealthy, and the person who is in charge is a mind flayer, and nobody knows. And that's basically like, well, it's just nobles doing crummy things to people. That's normal. But then, like, somebody's missing a brain. And then, like, oh, okay, you know, bribing some officials, you know, nepotism here, this and that crap that nobles might do and abuse power, okay. But, okay, someone's missing a brain. We gotta investigate this. People are angry and scared.
Did you read what James Leslie said? Let me guess.
Sweeney Todd comes to mind for the shops?
No, he said, let me guess, Nate, your cleric belongs to it?
No. Though I yearn to travel the seas. And a yacht would be mighty fine.
Arden Helma actually brings up a really valid point and something I definitely think we should write down. No layer, homeless villain, frowny face. Not necessarily frowny face. What if your villain is a werewolf, like a true blood that can change whenever they want, and they literally live out in the wilds and just enjoy hunting people? Like that's their thing to do. Friday night, looking for some fun. I guess I'll hunt down some poor defenseless people.
Or you know, he gets all the niceties of having the wilds be tamed for him in the area. He lives out in the forest, doesn't have to pay taxes, doesn't have a place. He's the freest man in the world.
I don't have to pay any taxes, see? It's how I make my living. That's all profit right there. No taxes.
Roasted squirrel?
Yeah. Roasted squirrel. Come on, pull up a log. This place is nice.
Yeah, but there you go. I like the no layer. That is a good point. There are going to be things like a werewolf's not going to have a layer. Mm-hmm. I mean, could. But that's more like a were-rat thing, I would think, to have a layer with a whole bunch of were-rats.
Daniel Deal, nomadic villains. They could be stereotypical nomads, as in member of a tribe, or it could literally be someone who keeps traveling from place to place, setting up there for a little while, and then moving on once things go south. They noticed I took another body from the crypt. Time to leave town. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, like doer of unsavory deeds that needs to leave town. Let's say suspicious activity.
Suspicious activity, right? So they you know, but you could also have the wandering like nomadic orc tribe, right? Or goblin tribe. Vampire gypsies from Voltaire. Kyle Ellis, the villain, keeps taking over the local villain's strongholds. We were fighting this guy, and then this other guy showed up and killed him and just told us to leave. And we're like, okay, he solved all our problems. We're out. Then things got worse. Yeah, Gypsy Caravan. Oh.
What?
Roaming serial killer. That just made me sad. Just someone who's traveling around hurting people.
So, with that would be kind of, eventually you'd have people that you'd run into that are actually on the trail of this person, I would think.
Yeah.
And especially if they do it in a particular strange way. Like if the person always ends up being a zombie or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the situation where that starts to become a pattern that a few people might see, or maybe the adventurers see, like, oh, I'm in this town, these bad things are happening, and then we travel someplace, and a month later, weird, mysterious deaths, very similar to the ones we heard about but didn't know what to do about months ago happen, and then, like, the first one happens now, and you usually know that there's like 3 or 4 from the last one, and then they stopped. So that could be a situation where you're coming upon something to stop it. And that's a good, like, mid-range, or just like a small story arc that doesn't necessarily have to be the main attraction. Do you know what I mean?
The main attraction. Step right up.
Story arc. There's like little tiny things that happen that make. Well, I mean, it's when you have a whole bunch of stuff going on, it can be a little more confusing to the players. But I find that they feel like it's not just you're completing the first level and now you're completing the second level and now you're completing the third level. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, you can still have a dungeon and be out in the world if you do certain things like too linear.
Yes. 10 by 10 corridor.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't matter if you described it as a giant forest. If they don't go anywhere except where you exactly want them to go.
Precisely.
All the
There's a
time.
trail leading east. Where do you go?
I have to cut through this forest. I don't want to. I don't trust this trail. It could be an ambush. There's really thick foliage everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You can't seem to get through the foliage.
I cast Burning Hands. You know, like, we're going this way.
Ooh, I like this one. Ramon Dozle, an arena.
Oh,
And the bad
nice.
guy's like one of the famous pit fighters of some kind. Ooh, John Gleeman, dark but useful. A meat packing plant. Although I have to say meat packing plants weren't a thing until the Industrial Revolution.
But a butcher place.
A butcher shop.
Like,
Sure.
not just any, but like the city's butchery.
Mhm.
Where like the cows come and whatever comes in out of the farmlands gets pre-processed there, and then we make all of our own sausage. It's made with people.
Exactly. Delicious Soylent.
Yeah.
Okay,
Soylent Green
all right.
sausage.
We have like 1 million strongholds and layers, and they're only about half readable because they're all behind me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. A ghoul butcher cult.
I had plenty of space.
He was fine, so it's good. We're good. I like someone had mentioned earlier. I'm sorry I missed this comment when it came out the first time, guys. But someone had mentioned earlier the concept that the big bad guy is like a collection of smaller sentient creatures, which kind of makes their fortress the clothing or armor they're hiding in. Kind of like a while back, maybe it was Dave and Ted did a Monster Mash where it was a pseudo plate mail with pseudo dragons in it.
Yeah. I think we did one with Faye as well.
Right. So you could have something like that where the place it hides is some form of controlled object, or kind of like having a demon soul bound to a sword, which is
So
like
let's say animated object.
Right, an animated object. Yeah, excellent. Oh, here we go. Odei said, did you cover rebels or revolutionaries? I think that's pretty real. That's definitely the kind of thing
We haven't, but that's a good point. And rebels, I guess it depends. If it's the people rebelling, then you most likely don't have like a standard base of operation. It might just be a town that you control.
Well, what
so
if
it depends on the degree.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say there's a figurehead leading a rebellion. Then they might have a stronghold. They might have a fortress. They might have a place they're hanging out after they've declared open rebellion, and started like all the chaos that would ensue. That's like their.
And there are plenty of times in the past where you have the rebellion is led by people, like, for instance, the king says, take all the weapons away from everyone. This has happened tons of times historically. So they send out soldiers, they take all the weapons away from everyone, but then they're left with things that they need to use in day-to-day use, farming implements typically, and then those become the weapons, and they train in private to use those.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up with ruins or strongholds or some other area where they go to meet up as rebels. So definitely, and that's definitely the kind of thing where you could have the players be pitted against people who are just being oppressed. And then the players are left with a choice. Do some oppressing.
Yeah, they could be part of the suppression force.
Exactly. Crooked sheriff.
That'll
There
make
you
them feel
go.
nice and clean, especially if the rebels and revolutionaries are actually the good guys in the fight.
Mm.
And you're like the king's friend or whatever. He's like, go put down this rebellion.
Oh, good. Man, Kyle Ellis, really good one. I really like that. My head was not in that space. That's a really good one.
Oh, that's great.
The town is the villain. They had a bad harvest, so they're sacrificing travelers to appease a nature god. And you could take several different directions with that. You could be like, well, there's a plague here, and when these people, your group of players show up, the plague has killed everyone, but not these villagers, and now they're worried that your characters are plague carriers, or lots of people want to play non-human species. So I imagine like someone with distinctly demonic features, like giant horns, like a tiefling or something. Mm-hmm. That might be burn at the stake territory. Just walk into town and somebody's getting a fire going for you just before you can get to the inn. So definitely.
The police station Resident Evil 1 style.
Oh yeah. Cosmic Tony, that example I gave of the people trying to get together weapons in order to fight off the oppressive king is the beginning of Kung Fu. And the beginning of the French Revolution stuff in Les Mis. So there you go. Very cool.
Oh, someone said something. What was it? Sorry, I'm reading chat.
I'm ready. You look like you had something there. I'm ready.
I do have something. What is it? It's in this brain.
Time sensitive locations. The bad guy shows up to a specific location. The original comment Andrew dropped is a time sensitive location. The tide, I can talk, is coming in. A dragon approaches, an avalanche is coming. But I was thinking more like the werewolf only patrols when the full moon is out. The vampire only comes out at night. That kind of thing. So you'll only be able to track this person if you go after them during that specific time.
Or if something, maybe like once a year, there's an extremely low tide.
Yeah, good call.
The two moons are in alignment or something. And then you're able to get access to this place where all these terrible fish people are coming from.
Oh, like yeah.
Innsmouth style, they're turning everybody in the local area into fish people. And that could be an aboleth making scoom or whatever they're called. Scoom.
Yeah. And Kyle Ellis brings up the idea of the palace wherever moonlight is shining. But I like the old what was that movie, the Krull with the Krull star? It was a really old movie. Skrull? Oh man. I think it's Krull. But anyway, there was a castle in it. And the castle would teleport every time the sun was coming up, I believe. So.
Oh, so I was thinking instead of a dragon approaching, it could also be a like a horde of monsters or something like that.
Yeah.
So like or an army. So this guy's basically coming in, going to do something significant, but the ravaging horde that's going to come in probably within a week because they're coming down from the mountains or something like that. That's going to cover up all the stuff he does today. Because no one was going to be alive anymore after that.
Exactly. So we have locations. Man, oh man, do we have locations. And we have modes of transportation. We could hit on minions. Not all villains need to have minions, but we could hit on minions before
I feel like minions are like a little side category. I don't know if I want to get into those because we might just start listing monsters. Do you know what I mean? If we're going to get into like more specific.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay, all right.
Oh, Fragonator, some kind of apparatus of Qualsh, like let's say it's a submarine.
Oh, Baba Yaga. It's like a is that a Russian? I think it's a Russian fairy tale, and it's the hut with the chicken legs. Just runs around.
Yeah.
That kind of falls into the Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, it's within that.
Castle. Yeah.
And the things we've mentioned, that's just like the archetype kind of thing of it. Like, oh, a church hiding a death cult. Well, that can be any type of
holy place.
holy place, like rotten underneath because there's some other thing that's actually taking it over. So it doesn't need to be a death cult. It can be a dragon god cult, or like an ooze god cult, or and Howl's Moving Castle could be anything from Baba Yaga's hut to giant floating tensor's disc that is carted around by an ox. You know, like
I really like stuff like that. That really makes my imagination soar. I love stuff like that. Okay. So if we don't do minions, we could have reasons to have minions. Or I have a feeling you have something up your sleeve.
No, I was just stroking my beard. I do that from time to time.
Things
I'm
evil people do.
Yes.
Stroke the beard. No.
The players have opinions on when I stroke my beard, how close they are to death, and bad things are going to happen. Let's see.
Generals for minions, styles of minions, a haunted train. I did have like a bunch of wagons connected together that just the wagon train never stopped. And I thought that was really fun. The players were not excited about it.
Praise the Ooze Lord. Kyle Ellis, reasons for villainy. I feel like we went over that, like the reasons behind people being villain. I feel like we went on that Friday.
So, but we did not do all the reasons for villainy.
Of course, not all the reasons for villainy.
We will definitely revisit villainy.
Seems to be a very popular topic.
Exactly.
Mainly because it's the people that your PCs fight. So
yeah, exactly.
As a DM, you need to have at least one of them. Multiple ones, really, because you have all their minions and stuff. So. Well,
I have had plenty of game sessions where there was no big bad guy. There was just kind of free roaming. Like I wrote all I could about the world around them, and then I just let them interact with it. And there were, different motivating factors in different areas for stuff. But yeah.
Okay, so do we want to go into motives? Especially if it's thematic with either the reason, kind of like what they do. I don't know.
Appeasement of a deity.
Why don't you go with it, and I'll see where I can hop in on it.
Okay. Well, appeasement of a deity is the easiest one, right? They're bad deities, bad servants. Done. 2 + 2 is 4, bad guy. Manipulation by a deity, maybe someone unwittingly doing things that aren't necessarily full-on evil. Ramon, that is a really awesome topic. Maybe we'll have time for that. I don't know if we will. How the villain is depleting the party. Traps, minions, magic, tactics, things like that. That is a really cool idea. Maybe I should just jot that concept down and we'll hit that again in a different stream. There's the problem with doing a stream on evil, as we found out on Friday and are quickly discovering tonight, is that there's no possible way to cover everything. It'd be like talking about players.
Yeah, all the different types of players you could play.
That's like 500 streams worth of content. Like you would never be done.
I was thinking. Let's go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, as soon as you think you're done, then you'd have Mike Merles be like, try these out. And you're like, oh. Yeah, exactly.
Arden Helma, motive, hangry.
Angry.
All right. So what were you saying with the 500 stream thing? I think it would be cool to do like a general like archetype discussion. So like if you want to have a hero, the holy warrior, like go, what kind of makes that? I think that'd be cool, but I don't. Maybe that'll be a Friday discussion sometime.
Yeah.
Why is evil so good?
Okay, all right. So other common things, and of course, when we're coming up with motives for a bad guy, we could list off the sins and use, gluttony and greed. And lust. We could use those. But rather than doing something like that, let's try to lean more towards something specific. So appeasement of a deity, that doesn't necessarily fall in line with anything specific. It's just that's what it is. And that kind of leaves room for a GM to just pick it up and go, okay, well, I'll just use that idea, and I've got this cool deity I made and this cool bad guy I want to make, and done. Does that say curry flavor? What does that say? Curry favor from a god. I'm doing great evil to get his curry recipe.
Yes.
It's delicious.
With that, I will manipulate the market for 1,000 miles.
Right. We have
spice
another one.
Must flow.
I need Chinese cinnamon in copious amounts now. Okay, righting a perceived wrong. That's a little bit more direct. I really like that.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of fuel that somebody could pick up and just go whatever direction they wanted to with. A motive like insanity, whittle it down. Let's get more direction there. Like, definitely crazy people make great bad guys because they make bad decisions or irrational decisions, but something a little bit more direct. Okay, Daniel Deal wants to conquer the kingdom so he can try to change it for the better. So he's conquer the world to his ideal or her ideal.
There's plenty of people in the world that always want to do that. When I'm in charge, I will usher in the utopia.
The fire god of curry. I will say I am a huge fan of curry, just for the record. Okay, so it's going so quick. I'm missing stuff.
Yes.
Couldn't see. Oh. Well, I guess I have to read it now. Voltaire said, motive, couldn't see why kids like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I got nothing for that one. That is so random. Okay, there is always going to be like the speech from one of the more recent Batman movies where he says sometimes they just want to see the world burn. And I think you could even just write that down, just wants to see the world burn. Yeah. Bad guys like that will always exist. But something, here we go. Here we go is a great example. Michael Weber. I got you right there. Out to gain knowledge no matter what the cost is. That is a really good one.
Yeah, that is one, but I would say that isn't one necessarily by itself. They usually always want it for something. Even if it's just to make themselves the best X. Do you know what I mean? Like, I am the foremost archmage of this world.
Voldemort.
Because I know these things. Well, he had his own version of Utopia he wanted to usher in.
He was a very dark individual, and something was wrong with his nose.
It melted off from his evil radiation.
Ooh. Okay, little dark in chat there. We're going to skip those. Trying to transcend the mortal realm needs sacrifices and worshippers. That's a good one.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Fernando. Someone who's willing to do anything to protect their clan or group or family. So they're like a bug, like one of the insect species trying to protect its clutch. You could have a nearby kingdom infringing on their territory or infringing on a food source or some other necessary resource. And so they're immediately, rallying against that.
That is all going to be under protection of your tribe. That's all going to go. Okay. So whether that's a nation, a town.
A nation and people, yeah.
A people.
Daniel Deal believes that there's no way to save mankind, or I would say in a D&D setting, the world. There's no way to save the world, so I'll just destroy it. It's beyond redemption. Let's wipe it clean. The gods will fix it afterwards. Elf bait, victory by any means.
And that could be somebody that anything from somebody who maybe had a legit reason to take back a throne, take back even something as simple as like being a governor or something of a place.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, yeah, we were losing, so I just decided to summon some undead or make a pact with a demon.
Exactly. Desperation forced them into a really, really poor conditions. Foreign conqueror wants new lands. Exactly. Concepts like only the strong survive. We talked about that in the Friday night chat.
Oh, yes.
The Druid of the desert.
Yeah, what is it? The might, the
might makes right.
Feeling that the natural law of the world is might makes right.
Oh, Russet Man, have a good night. Thanks for hanging out, buddy.
See ya.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, Kyle Ellis. He's got a Godzilla style motivation. Hates civilization, believes nature is the true way, so destroys cities, but doesn't kill the people in them unless they attack. So just plows through and destroys structures and stuff, or the villain or whatever, and then leaves.
Yes, but then a time will come where you realize they just cut down more trees to fix the damage.
Well, that could be story development.
And then you must eliminate them.
Yeah, you must purge them. They're an infection. Yeah.
So, eco-terrorists, got it.
That, you know what that immediately makes me think of? If you'd like to have a really good villain monologue, look at villain monologues for movies and edit them to better fit your characters. So we have our Druid, and our Druid is a super evil bad guy because he sees all the sentient species as a plague, a virus that is wiping out the world, although virus is kind of an evolved term for D&D settings. But anyway, he sees them as this plague, a plague that is wiping out the world. If you grabbed Agent Smith's speech from The Matrix, you could easily make that speech perfectly into an absolutely crazy druid giving a speech. Let me tell you something I've observed since I came here. You consume and consume until you're running out of resources. And the only way you can get more is to populate and move on. Yeah. No, it would be good. That would be a good one.
Cursed to consume.
Yeah. Someone who doesn't want to be evil but is forced to be evil. The hunger.
Yeah.
Raven, I was saying that years before Agent Smith. Well, that's the concept of an extreme point of view like that. It is useful, is functional, is something you can use for a villain. And I guarantee if you drop that on your players, they're never going to realize that's Agent Smith's speech or Zorg's speech or, name your movie bad guy. They're never going to recognize it.
Especially if you put in some thines and these in there.
Yeah, exactly. Thine.
Feck, Sauron, Frodo, Gandalf never told you what happened to your father.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, so basically that basically something that precipitates rapidly a change in personality, like a revealing of a secret. And basically not being able to cope or reactionarily reacting to that in a bad way. And then once you start doing bad things, it's like, well, I already killed that guy in a rage, so what's one more guy gets in my way?
Right. Someone who feels like they're unredeemable.
Yes. Yeah, you become that because you're really a good person. You just had a snap, basically,
right,
from some kind of revelation.
You,
So
and maybe the players could even get the opportunity to role play and be like, you can, tomorrow's a new day. Start over tomorrow. It doesn't have to be this way every day. Yeah. Here we go. John Edwards, a fan group of your party so obsessive the plot to capture and imprison you forever so you can never leave them.
all right. So like a stalker kind of thing.
Ramon
like
Dozle,
obsessive.
Right, obsessive. Some form of addiction, like the elves from World of Warcraft. What are they? Blood elves? I don't remember what they're called, but they're addicted to magic. You could even like go straight down that route and be like, person is addicted to magic, must consume magical energy. Party has spellcaster in it. Tries to befriend them for free meal. Yeah.
Oh, obsessed with prophecy, Elfbait. That's great because that is really, that is one of those like wax nose things where you can just bend that person who gets obsessed with it, just bend it. It's like if they become obsessed with numerology and they've like done all these calculations and they're like, you know, the son of the king and the queen is actually replaced by a changeling.
Yes.
Because I've read it in the stars and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it just be like conspiracy theory level stuff that's not true, but they've kind of worked their mind and twisted it into that truth. Because it's
they're
what they
borderline tinfoil hat crazy. Like they've created all of these. They're like the court inquisitor who keeps coming up with people that need to be tested to see if they're a witch, and none of these people are witches.
Because they can't leave even one. It's better to burn 3 innocent people than let one witch leave. You know, like that.
Right? Exactly. Raven Thylacine kind of hits on it partially here, but you could have a villain who's trying to unite a bunch of different kingdoms that would normally be warring against each other. You could have a villain who's trying to unite them through evil acts. And that could really play out interestingly if the players found out and were like, we agree with you. It kind of a kill a tree to save the forest mentality where they're like, if we do what the villain wants, he's right. The kingdoms will unite, but a bunch of people will die. Or this guy's a nut job. We need to put him down before anyone else gets hurt. So that could be interesting. That could cause some really cool interplay with the players. That would be fun. That would be a good role play experience.
The Dolphin, thanks for the follow.
Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it.
Oh, so needs to unite the nations to fight a grand foe by any means needed, I would say, that's how I kind of mash that together. So whatever is required to get everybody together. But, you know, two kingdoms don't want to agree to this marriage contract that I've worked out for them that will, like, lead to a greater peace and all. Well, then I'll just have
two unified kingdoms through marriage.
There'll just have to be some assassinations, that's all.
Yes.
To fix that. And then it'll be fixed and everything will work like a nice big clock. And
the prince's best friend keeps telling him not to get married. Well, that guy's got to go.
Yeah. The prince's current like infatuation, as that's what the king says anyway. So the prince's current infatuation just has to disappear and be kidnapped or whatever, just to get him out of the way. So that would be things where somebody maybe, and that might be springboarded from that person's obsession with prophecy. Like they see something coming, or they actually know something to be coming based on what they've read.
They could even be right.
Yes, they could be right.
Like that would be the crazy messed up part, is that they're actually right.
Yes, but it's heading towards this really bloody, convoluted way of happening because it's basically one person trying to shove everything towards that goal.
Chris S brings up a really, really cool idea that I mean, it seems like an obvious idea, doesn't it? So you could have the Mass Effect Reapers. So it's a super ancient evil programmed to just wipe out everything. So like Mind Flayers programmed this thing, and it's been hiding, it's been in wait for forever, and now this thing comes out and kills everything that isn't a Mind Flayer. So you could kind of have that predestined. It was kind of a War of the Worlds thing before it was a Mass Effect thing, because the War of the Worlds aliens were all, I don't know, below the ground or whatever in that movie. I don't remember what they were in the original radio show.
They were riding the lightning.
At
least that was in the remake.
One punch.
So I gotta say, all off topic, but that movie, when I left, I was just like, wow, I just saw so many people be vaporized. I'm a little shell shocked. I know it was like with fantasy weapons that don't exist, but like
still though,
all those people are just dust. And I've played D&D games where it's like, yeah, we're fighting an entire army of people, and there's like meteor showers blowing things up, and you're like, yeah, it's not the same thing. If there was a movie that entire fight happened, yeah, that would have been crazy. I'd be like, I gotta go take a nap and not think about this.
I need to think about happy things.
Yes.
What are the kids' cartoons today?
Yeah, spirit groves and were bunnies.
I still am madly in love with were bunnies.
Yeah,
madly in love with were bunnies.
That was the internet
awesome
gold out of that one, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Ramon Dozle. And this kind of goes along some other lines as well, but wants to create the ultimate magic, succeeds, and creates an atomic bomb-like spell. But that can be extrapolated in a lot of different directions. So creates some form of magical effect that's way outside the scope of what they were aiming for. And they weren't necessarily evil. They just rendered an incredibly devastating act. So now they, they could do it again if they want to. There we go. Raven Thylacine.
We're saying crafts a doomsday device.
Right. Craft it. Exactly. And could do so again. So you end up throwing that moral quandary back in the player's laps. He's not evil. He is just the toy maker.
John Gleeman, Eberron, I felt they had like 10 ways for the world to end. I thought that was always really cool, because the DM could grab any of those and just say, oh, well, these guys are succeeding more than anybody else. And that could be the thrust of the campaign. So one thing that people might not know is we talk about Ulfganya a lot, which is the Nerdarchy Homebrew world, and that's in our campaign setting, Chimes of Discordia. And it's called that because there's these things called the chimes. And the chimes are these events that basically help unravel the world. So some of them have already gone off in the game. In different games. There have been some that have been basically, rung, I guess you would say. And so we don't know how many, we're not going to let you know how many there are. But something crazy will happen towards the end, but.
Yeah, the Andrew says run a campaign where the entire world has erupted into a war, and both sides count the PCs as the enemy. You don't really get kind of a directed villain out of that, or even a core character to interact with for the players.
Yeah, you get basically, it's like us versus the world.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, what's directing those people? So if it's erupted into civil war, individuals, for the most part, people want some kind of stability.
Yes.
So if you would have to make what's driving that war on both sides unstable enough that the people that they fell apart, like basically dismantled the war through that effort. But if people know you're doing it, then they just see you as the problem. It's like we would win the war. We would have won the war already if it wasn't for you screwing everything up.
But I'm not screwing it up. I'm trying to help you.
I'm trying to help you. Villain! Good-hearted, good-meaning villain.
the concept of some form of business or something where they're willing to make profit no matter what.
Yeah. So that we could just say like greed. Give me the stuff.
I mean, that is back to the more simplistic side of things, but essentially, yeah, you could make any entity that's just a very greedy person. Zorg was just a very greedy person.
Now, that's not necessarily always the main. That's the sum up of what they're doing, but that might not be the drive for it, or it might be a very simplistic motivation, like I just want to amass a lot of gold, like so I can just look at it every day because it fills me with joy. But aside from that, you'd like, well, what are you going to do with it after you have so much? You're like, yep, this is just enough. Well, maybe there's never enough. You know, then you go into that whole kind of idea of there's like that's like continuation, just gets worse and worse.
Make a disease to sell the cure. That is a constant sci-fi plot. That one is incessant. Or the disease exists and they have the cure, but treating it gets them more money. Johnny Mnemonic. So there was a really good one in here that I have lost now. I'm gonna find it. Here we are. Aaron Parks. How about a villain by accident? Accidentally causes something bad to happen, so a kill on sight is issued for this person, and then they're forced to kill out of self-preservation.
We talked a bit about that in Friday, and
we did.
What we said was that was a way for your players to be considered the villains. Like just, you get falsely accused, or a noble is bribing some officials and you're getting arrested under some accusation, and it seems like they're going to try and stick you with this, or you just don't want to risk being stuck in a jail with no weapons. So you're like, no, we're not going. And then some of the guards die because you got to run away instead of taking them and healing them and stuff. So you've actually killed guards. Not only do you have this false accusation, you also have actually killed people. So then I mean, you're legit bad guys at that point, in a sense. As far as the law is concerned, you're in the wrong.
There are bounty hunters and heroes headed out to try and find you and bring you to justice.
Yeah, and if you kill enough people, there's going to be paladin orders with you. Yeah. Like next to the kill on sight orders.
They have a painting of your face on the wall every time they walk out the door.
Little magic holograms.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're over and we're at summary time.
We are over.
Yes. And I'm really glad I don't have to do the summary tonight.
I'm not reading all this, just by the way. Okay, so
no, you have to. We
started with the idea of naming a villain and kind of what you try and get out of that. Are you trying to make a statement? Is it supposed to be off-putting, like, my name is Neil, you may call me Tim, those kind of things? Or is it like Garash Skull Crusher? That evokes something. Or
run away.
Run away. I want to run away. Or it's totally cool to kill this guy. He's crushed skulls. It's fine. So then you have all these other types of, maybe it's speaks to their personality, or they're so ancient and old that they have many names, and those many names can be clues that everybody has, but they have separate pieces. So you might hear about this entity from several different directions and not connect that it's this one thing from much later. And that's actually my hope. A lot of times when I do that, I'm like, all right, don't figure it out. I got to give them enough other stuff that they don't just have this lying on the table and like, well, there's two pieces of the puzzle. Let's see if they fit together. It's much better if you have it like dispersed throughout.
The big aha moment. Make them feel like they figured it out.
Yeah.
Even though you've been feeding them breadcrumbs. I'll feed you, baby birds.
Yeah. Just in the nick of time, they figured it out so they can solve the issue or like actually go after the real villain. So that's like the thing behind names. What's the purpose? Are you making a purpose? Is it supposed to be off-putting, like the exact opposite of what you'd imagine? Like Reichard, Kelvin, Julesy III is a necromancer who's crazy. But you don't know that until you actually speak with him. If you saw his name on a piece of paper, you go, oh, it's some noble guy from a house that I've never heard of. But meeting them in person changes your entire perspective on that name. Why they're out in the world, or ways of them escaping or mobility. So that's going to be their types of transportation, whether flying, teleporting, carriages, on foot, flaming chariots.
Flaming chariots.
My personal favorite out of the low level power villain escape.
Elephants.
Elephants.
Like the elephants
Yes.
a lot. Want them to be able to fly.
Flying elephants. I think you should be able to make a flaming chariot into a elephant, just like almost like the wood carvings on the bow of the ship. Just instead, it's the like flaming elephant relief. Then we had talked about a whole bunch of strongholds and the type of things and reasons you could use it, and why why ruins. Almost always somebody's hanging in the ruins. Well, it's because of the proximity possibly to people, while also people being very disinterested in being around it. And then all the other cool stuff, like including things like time-sensitive locations, which I thought was a great addition. Then we've got motives, and that is everything from appeasing or manipulating or being manipulated by a god, righting a wrong where you're actually in the right, but you're doing it in the wrong ways, or you're doing it so somebody thinks it's wrong. And if that's the player characters, then you're the villain, regardless of if the players are just biased against you. And then you have things like obsessed with the truth and gaining prophetic knowledge that they then apply correctly or incorrectly to, ends up being villainous acts because they're trying to save the world or usher in a new utopia rather than, a dystopian future, which is, obviously what they should get in the end, right? And then just simple things like greed or, shenanigans and charlatan stuff like making a disease or poisoning a well or something and making the cure for it. Step 3, profit.
That's dark. Next, and in the next episode, we'll talk about rainbows, love, and hugs.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, one of the things to say about that is the Nerdarchy crew, Nerdarchist Ted, Dave, and myself are going to be in Concoction in Cleveland, Ohio this weekend coming up. So I don't think we're going to have the regular scheduled program unless I can figure some kind of magic out, which I might be able to. So I'm not ruling it out, but I'm saying this Thursday, Friday show might be just con stuff throughout the day, or it might be me going over with, snatching my mic and my that thing that shoots video stuff, whatever.
The camera.
The webcam.
Are you tired now?
That thing I'm looking at right now, the webcam.
Are you feeling sleepy, lad?
Yeah, just need some coffee. Yes. So what I would say is we're going to try something. So as of right now, schedule tentative for this weekend. And also including this next coming Sunday, I will still be in Concoction. I will be traveling home from Concoction, probably still at 9 o'clock at night. So I'd say this next week of programming is going to be really kind of hit or miss on what we can make to happen, because Wi-Fi is definitely hit or miss when you're traveling.
Kienata should stream with a guest, Megan R. Miller.
Oh, well, that is a great suggestion, and I'll let her know that you said that, but I believe she will be at Concoction. I believe she'll be there. If she's not, I will let her know about it, though. That could be cool.
But keep your eyes peeled. We may have some magic come through. So.
Yes. So join us whenever you can and whenever we can for the random grab bag that is this next upcoming week.
Yeah.
And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.